From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Ijoma Unyato.
Hello and welcome. NCDC announces 16 confirmed new cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria as the federal government asks for cooperation of Nigerians in the efforts to curb the spread of the pandemic in the country, says the nation is at war with an unseen enemy. National Assembly leadership faults the implementation of the social investment program by the federal government as it meets with the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs over the conditional cash transfer. At least 5 persons reportedly killed following attempt by the police and members of the Civilian Joint Task Force to enforce the lockdown order in Kaduna South local government area. And the city of New York in the U.S. reports highest COVID-19 cases in a single day as total figure for the country hits over 11,000. Plus, we'll have business, sports, news from Abuja, the FCT, and then later on we'll have international news from our London studios.
Business news tonight. International Monetary Fund IMF says it is considering Nigeria's request for funds to counter the impact of coronavirus pandemic on Africa's biggest economy.
On sports news tonight, United States Department of Justice alleges former FIFA executives took bribes for voting for Russia and Qatar to host the World Cups in 2018 and 2022.
And from the nation's capital, federal government opens more isolation centers in the nation's capital, facilities to accommodate at least 500 bed spaces.
Nigeria now has a total of 254 confirmed cases of the coronavirus disease. This is after the Nigeria Center for Disease Control announced 16 new cases today. 10 of the new cases are in Lagos, with 2 each in the FCT and Oyo State, and 1 each in Delta and Katsina states. A breakdown of the cases in each of the states shows that Lagos now has 130 cases, the FCT Abuja 50, Osun with 20, Oyo and Edo have 11 cases each, Bauchi has 6 cases, Akwa Ibom and Kaduna 5 each, 4 in Ogun State, while Enugu, Ekiti, Kwara and Rivers have 2 cases, with Undo, Benue, Katsina and Delta states recording 1 case each. Meanwhile, the chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 is reminding Nigerians that the nation is at war with an unseen but potent enemy. Mr. Boss Mustafa, who is also the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, offered a solemn reminder at the briefing of the task force at the State House here in Lagos. He is also commending the Lagos State Government for the strategies it's adopted in coping with the pandemic.
As Lagos State battles the coronavirus, members of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 visit the sites of its 4 isolation centers, which have been completed and ready to take in patients. Afterwards, the team converges on the governor's residence at Marina, where the chairman of the task force and secretary to the government of the Federation admits he's impressed with the state government's efforts at combating the pandemic.
Thank you very much.
On behalf of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, and members of the Presidential Task Force, truly and sincerely commend the Governor and the people of Lagos State for a remarkable, resilient, and resourceful fight against the coronavirus.
On the lockdown directive of the federal government, the SGF emphasizes its necessity, considering the seriousness of the scourge.
The nation is at war with an unseen but very potent enemy. To successfully prosecute this war, we must own it. We must participate in it. We must create awareness. We must obey rules and regulations. We must stay at home.
What lessons can other states learn from Lagos? This is what the Minister of Health has to say.
As other states begin to develop their public health response and protocols, they will come here to come and do some sort of study, maybe 1 or 2 weeks of hands-on to learn the tricks that Lagos has. So Lagos is very well prepared. Other states are trying. They have only few cases outside, so there's no comparison with what is here in Lagos.
There are other measures the state government has embarked on for the safety of its residents, including the land borders.
And we needed to activate a facility at Badagry. So we have 2 facilities at Badagry, right? So when that happens, those facilities will go live, right? So we also have facilities in Ekpe, we have at Alimo Shore, we have in Lekki, we have in other places that are just waiting in the event that we need to activate and clear those facilities, especially for quarantine.
When fully completed, the Lagos State Isolation Centers will have a combined bed capacity of 464 and hopefully will go some way towards flattening the COVID-19 curve.
Well, it was a busy day today for the Presidential Task Force as the team also inspected some of the isolation centers here in Lagos. Among the facilities visited by the team was the Lagos University Teaching Hospital Isolation Center. The Chief Medical Director of LUTH explained that 4 wards in the newly rehabilitated Block B section of the hospital have been converted to an isolation center to admit and treat COVID-19 patients.
We have been able to put together a newly furnished block of 4 wards, each one containing 30 beds. We have 60 beds altogether now, new beds, and we have enough personal protective equipment and all what we need, a lot of what we need to start admission of COVID-19 positive patients in Lagos. As you heard, this will still be done through the pyramidal structure of Lagos State. We will be operating under the command of the Lagos State government because we don't want to be doing anything parallel to the arrangement that's already on ground. It will be to complement what's already going on. So we are very happy with that. We have a squad of 120 staff, all volunteer staff that are ready as warriors to combat this condition in LUTH. They've all been trained. We have about 30 doctors, about 30 nurses, we have cleaners, we have drivers, we have security men, we have laboratory scientists, pharmacists, psychiatrists, you name it. It's a team, and they have all willingly come together. They've been training since February, and we are ready to combat this disease. It's been cordoned off. There are various corridors and pathways through which you can circumvent Block B. We don't want anybody to go and start getting what they didn't bring to the hospital. It's only fear, as we're using this as a makeshift isolation place, for people not to just stroll in and stroll out of that place. So that shouldn't be a pressure. We already have informed all our staff that non-COVID related hospital traffic will have to go around Block B, not pass through Block B. So that shouldn't be a... And because of the lockdown, because of the scaling down of various activities in the hospital, the traffic is not as heavy as you would have expected anyway. So it shouldn't put pressure on us.
Meanwhile, another COVID-19 patient has been discharged from the Lagos Isolation Center in Yaba after testing negative to the virus. Now, that brings the total number of patients discharged from the isolation facility in Lagos to 32. The Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, confirmed this on his verified Twitter handle, saying the discharged person is a female patient who is fully recovered. In the meantime, the state government has taken delivery of 3 ambulances donated by the United Nations in Nigeria as part of its support for the state government's fight. The ambulances were presented by the WHO officer in charge in the presence of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation and the Chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, Mr. Boss Mustafa. And over in the nation's capital, the leadership of the National Assembly is seeking an urgent review of the federal government's social investment program. The principal officers in the legislature noted that the program has not been able to identify the poorest Nigerians. They made their observations during a meeting with the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs. Our correspondent Linda Akigbe reports. Vacant entrances and unoccupied corridors in the National Assembly, an indication of the strict compliance by legislators and staff to the lockdown of the capital city over the coronavirus pandemic. But inside the hearing room in the Senate building, a meeting between the leadership of the National Assembly and the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs is ongoing.
And as parliamentarians,
the leadership of the National Assembly has invited the minister to explain in detail the federal government's intervention initiatives to reduce the impacts of the coronavirus pandemic, particularly on the poor and vulnerable members of the society.
We need to put our thinking cap and work out some strategies on how to identify, because we have a problem of identifying who is the poorest person in Nigeria. I think we have not been able to reach far out there to get them properly captured.
How do you come about your list? How comprehensive is your distribution list? What are the parameters? What is the geographical spread?
The minister admits difficulties in handling some aspects of a social investment program. She also reveals that the federal government has not fulfilled its own obligation to the counterpart funding for the conditional cash transfer.
Homegrown school feeding program, I must confess that is also another program that I'm still battling to really understand, honestly, because there are too many intrigues and too many issues there.
The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs has come under criticism for the manner her ministry has distributed funds for the conditional cash transfer, with many questioning the parameters for selecting the beneficiaries.
Well, number one, these people have been on the register. There's a national social register in place, and this register is responsible for all these vulnerable and poor households that have been identified. It's an existing program, and that program is supposed to give 5,000 naira cash to poor and vulnerable household per month.
The minister also agrees with the leadership of the National Assembly on the need for legal backing to the social investment program, and this may be one of the legislative actions to be undertaken by the National Assembly on resumption. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News. The lockdown order in some states have not gone down well with residents of Ojodu and Ikeja in Lagos State who are asking the federal government to live up to its promise of providing relief during the restriction period. They say the sit-at-home order will not work as it's beginning to take its toll on their livelihood. Our correspondent Gimba Umar reports.
Day 8 of the lockdown order. Berger area, however, proves difficult to control as persons moved freely at the bus stop. Basic supplies like gas, food and cash dominates their reasoning despite the COVID-19 pandemic. Here, some banks shut down and not even the ATMs work, according to this young man who is trying to contain his anger.
Now they are telling me the bank is not going to open today. So it's just so crazy right now. It's just so crazy everywhere. As in, I'm very, very angry at this point.
This morning I came to the bank hoping that they will open, even if it's just from 10 till like 1 o'clock, so that we can take some money, then do what we want to do. I came this morning, the place is locked.
Further down, youths could be seen playing football on the streets in Agidingbi. Defying the lockdown order by the president. The entire street itself gives no sense of a lockdown in place. Major streets have a handful of cars plying them as persons take over the sidewalk. In Ikeja's central business district, apprehension takes over. The demand, as it concerns the lockdown, is disturbing.
So you don't expect people to sit at home without having anything to eat.
For now, I cannot do anything. You understand me, bros? We have to feed. Mothers are hungry. We are not happy.
The promise by the government to provide food according to many under the Ikeja Bridge has failed, insisting that they must be allowed to search for their daily bread before the situation worsens.
There's no money, no food. Both my wife, my children, all of us are suffering. Not only me alone. All boys, all students, everybody are roaming about. There's nothing.
The state government's waste agency officials were also seen on hand. They say that the state must be kept clean despite the pandemic.
I'm telling people that you stay at home, that you follow the directives of the governor and the president. So we are looking for where refuse is, so we can get rid of the refuse on the road.
For now, the youth and the elderly sit idly, throwing social distancing to the wind. It is hoped that the message of grave danger the coronavirus presents is understood, especially for the masses. The streets remain busy in the heart of Lagos, which is Ikeja, as mounting pressure and tension continue to grow amongst the youths. How the government will tackle this remains to be seen. I'm Gimbo Umar reporting for Channels Television News.
In part 2, after the break, more on the lockdown and how residents of Kaduna are reacting to the killing of some residents allegedly by security personnel. That's in a moment. Do stay with us.